All right, so this is Garrett Hedman's, because you know my last name, 2018 winter quarter DTR video. And what we're going to go through today is really just talking about this quarter and my focus on design arguments. I came in saying I want to be able to make good design arguments, and I would say high level, I'm leaving knowing the parts of design arguments, and I can see the pieces of design arguments. And as I read and think about designing, I do have an occasional recollection of all the parts and how they interact with each other. Can I spit out design arguments right away in terms of what works and why it doesn't work and what pieces are missing? No, not yet. But I just kind of want to go through the process of how I went about learning about these and what it kind of means for future directions. So I really didn't focus on tech. I didn't really focus on research. It was just kind of all about this design arguments. And before I go into these parts, just of my project, I want to just talk about how this goal was not just DTR focused. This goal was embedded in so much of this quarter, and I just kind of want to go through that. The first thing was creating these feedback homeworks and assignments, where really all I was doing is saying what was the problem going on in the classroom, why did that problem exist, what were the and designing solutions that would overcome the obstacles to lead to outcomes that I want. And for every class I gave feedback, well, to a certain extent, to the point where I could manage it. But for 3 of the classes I was giving these weekly feedbacks, which were all kind of just making design arguments. This is what I like, and it was also like arguing for what I liked and arguing for what I didn't like in the design and how the design kind of impacted that. I think this was super healthy. I think this was this if we're thinking about like creating design argument homework, starting something simple like this by breaking down what exists and why it works or doesn't work, the outcomes and obstacles. I think this was a good assignment, but it was also in my other classes I was thinking greatly about it. So this time, we kind of went over this briefly. This was Uri's class where I designed 3 different models of just gameplay to learn about bananas. And I was really focused on the design characteristics as I was making it. And this was kind of interesting because this was just me building out and understanding. I started to think about why I was building the way I did, because I had this intuition about like, oh, for if we're creating a multiplayer system, then they're all going to be cooperating on the farm rather than competing against each other. And I started thinking about why cooperation matters more than competing, and that cooperation can lead to the idea of like distributed computation, where each person is taking different tasks, but they have to talk together to lead to a certain result. And although that's not the most articulate design argument, I would just wanted to show that I was thinking about it as I was creating it, and I was looking at what kind of learning outcomes, what are the behavior outcomes, what are the affective outcomes that we're looking for as we design. And this was a really interesting place because not everyone was focused on the design as much as I was. But I just wanted to show that I was thinking greatly about it. In knowledge representations, I did a project on how people choose movie for a movie night, and what I was looking at here is just like how the design of Netflix kind of helps people choose movies, and how I was getting at these category titles at the very side of Netflix, actually huge in terms of helping people navigate through a library of 6,000 plus movies, and how when people are trying to pick out a movie for a movie night, they'll first go to the categories and see if it emotionally resonates with them, if it fits their needs at the time. So this again was just looking at a simple thing as the design choice of putting categories before the titles, and how that helps people meet their goals of choosing a movie for a movie night. And again, not the most articulated design argument, as I'm just like kind of talking freely about this, but I just wanted to show you that I'm thinking about these things. Which leads me to this one. this was kind of the mock interface of the remediation tool that I was creating for DTR. And this one I'm going to spend a little bit more time on, just to kind of talk through what I've been learning about design and this space. So actually, before I go right into that, let's pop out here. So just to remind you, yes, I've been talking about design arguments a lot, but it's because we're finally in a place to be able to talk about design arguments. First quarter was really focused on this idea of effective learning, how can we engage people, but then we went into, okay, well, first we need a tool that teaches people, which was the tutor system stuff, but then we're asked, well, where does the tutor system fit in? And I know we know all this, so what context is a problem, but I just want to go over it, sorry. And then so we kind of landed on this idea of remediation as a space where we can start implementing technology. And so that led us to start designing, or led me to start designing tools to organize information for remediation. So not necessarily the tool to teach, but the tool to organize knowledge, to decide what should be remediated and what should not. And the first part of this is that you should be able to have a bank of knowledge that you should be able to assign and students should be able to receive. But the outcome that we're looking for in this is that you should have some sort of flexibility in the knowledge that you assign to classes and when they assign knowledge. And I just really like this because, I really liked to know when you encouraged me to just create this out, because it's really start to conceptualize and start to think and visualize that what does it look like to have flexible knowledge. This, in a way, is a textbook, right? You have the points that you want to teach. It just doesn't go into the text. It does give you some examples of problems that you'll be able to answer, but this is a textbook. It's just a different type of textbook. It's a textbook where teachers can change what they want students to learn at any given time. And that's one of the characteristics here, is that it's customizable. The fact that teachers can determine what knowledge they want to teach in a class. Therefore, they can adapt it to whatever means they're teaching, whether it be exploratory-based, inquiry-based, project-based, etc. And this will also allow for some sort of modularity. So if you don't want to determine if a molecule is ionic or covalent, you can take that out, because that might not be pertinent to the activity that you're going to do. And so if I was to summarize the design argument for this, and I'm actually going to read this out because, again, I'm not that fluent in being able to just spit out why things work and why things don't work. I haven't been able to internalize design as much as I want to. But the idea is, like, we want teachers to be able to adapt outside resources to a variety of contexts without overwhelming learners with extra information. So that's the obstacle, right? Is that there's a chance that in textbooks you just have lots of extra information. So outside research should be granular as possible to avoid including unnecessary information, because when knowledge is granular, you can filter out that extra information and you can just focus on the information that you need. And that's about it for this one. So that was just one example of a lot of different examples where we got to get a little bit more detailed in terms of what we're trying to go for, why we're trying to do it. In terms of future directions, I think I'm going to play around with these design arguments just a little bit more, just clean them up in the canvas kind of over spring break, and really think about how I could slice one of these things. Because I do have some ideas. I think we're going to get a little creative on this, for better or worse. But I'm excited about it. I think also answering these questions, what's the gold standard of remediation? What's the specific context we need it in? And also start getting a reading list are the three things that I hope to answer before I come back. and maybe possibly have some sort of experiment outline, just in terms of like a direction or slice that I'd like. Actually, that's this one, a slice that I'd want to go at. Um, and if I did learn what I needed to learn this quarter, I should be able to have a pretty concrete slice to be able to talk about. And I'll send it out as soon as I figure it out. But for the most part, I hope we enjoy our spring breaks. Thank you for the great quarter, and let me know if there's anything you need. All right, let's